Welcome to an introduction of the new features of VCL UI Pack version 10.5. Among some other very valuable bug fixes, TMS extended or introduced us to 3 new features. First, you have full emoji support in the HTML engine. Second, they introduce a new control called T-Advanced Emoticon Picker Dropdown, which is a list dropdown control that allows you to pick an emoji, as you know it from Windows nowadays and also from many web editors that allow you to add emojis to text. And then the biggest addition, you will get web style input form control validation. This is a very valuable feature to have in your applications to give immediate feedback on data entered by the end user that does not have to be an error. Usually you only use validation in order to either accept values or deny values, but in this case you can use validation also to show hints how the user might be able to improve the data that was entered. I will give you an extensive demonstration of the control validation, and there you will see that you can have a multitude of levels of different messages. But before we look at the validation, let's look at the new drop-down control that allows you to select emojis. The control is called T-Advanced Emoticon Picker Dropdown, and it looks like a normal combo box. If we run this example, we can see the control in action. Clicking on the arrow button expands the dropdown and you can select any of the emojis. The control has, like any other combo box, an on-change event to react to the selection. Let's select an emoji, and there you see I updated the HTML label. Looking at the source code, opening up the events on change, there you see the HTML label, HTML text, is assigned the property emoticon HTML, and that is the property that you have to use in order to retrieve the emoji that has been selected by the user. Let's look at the web style validation that is now available in the VCL UI Pack. It is strongly supported by the T-Advanced Tooltip component that is responsible to display the messages on screen. Let's run the demo first so you get an impression what we're doing here. You have several input fields in your form, text fields, one numerical field, and also a multi-line field. As soon as we click validate, each and every one of the input controls is being validated, and if there is an error or a remark, this is added using the Advanced Tooltip component. So as soon as I enter a first name and a last name and keep everything else the same and I click validate, I get OK. Obviously you wouldn't show this in a real world application, but this shows you that you have the ability to create different tooltips with different colors around their bubble, and you can also affect the color of the control. So that is the magic about the validation that has been added to VCL UI Pack. Everything that has to do with drawing the bubbles and positioning them and adding the color is handled by the framework. You can focus on validating the result and showing a certain tooltip if a certain condition is true. But before we look at the implementation, let's look at the different levels of tooltips that we have defined in this application. Everything can be defined by you. You can define the icon, the text, and the colors. And you can also specify if the tooltip is a rectangle or like this, a rounded rectangle. So if the H is 0, we show an error message that the H has to be specified. As soon as we specify, for example, 10, we still get a warning. However, this is no longer an error message. This is just a warning indicated by the warning sign in different colors. As soon as we increase the H to 18 and validate again, the H is OK. So we have seen 3 different levels: error, warning, and OK. Another use of advanced tooltips you see for the description. There is really no error validation or warning. In this case, we show an option to display a help text. So instead of using validate, you might be considering adding explanatory help text for each input control, and then you could add another button, name it like short help or quick help, and then the user would immediately know what kind of information is to be added here. Again, we indicate this by a neutral color black and an information icon. Looking at the implementation, there is still a strong tie to rapid application development. Each tooltip is a separate control or component on the form of type T advanced tooltip. For example, the valid tooltip has the green color, and you can specify the color of the bubble in border color and the color of the control that is tied or is being validated using this tooltip. Also, you can specify the icon using an image list by its image index. Further customization options are the shape of the tooltip, the rounding value of the corners for the tooltip, and the position of the tooltip. You can also specify a maximum width so that the tooltip doesn't get wider than the area that you can use for your form. Implementing the validation is easy. TMS offers the show validator method, which takes the control that is to be validated or which is tied to the tooltip as the first parameter. The second parameter is the text to be shown in the tooltip, and the third parameter is the tooltip to be shown. And as soon as you call show validator, the tooltip is going to be shown. So you have to make sure that you only call show validator if a certain condition applies. For example, if the user didn't enter a first name, we want to show the message first name cannot be empty with the error tooltip, and we tie it to the edit control first name. You can also see the age conditions right here. If the age is entered as 0, we show an error tooltip that the age must be higher and tie it to the edit control for the age. If the user enters a value that is higher than 100, we just show an info tooltip that we consider it unlikely that the value is entered correctly with an information tooltip. If the value is smaller than 18, we show the warning that it's not an adult that we're entering, and otherwise we say, hey, this is valid with a green tooltip. This shows you how easy it is to integrate these validators into your code. All the drawing is handled by the framework. One important thing to note is if you show a validator, you also have to hide it. And this is done in the group 1 click event in this example. All the validators are being hidden as soon as there's a click in the group box. That means inside of the form. Of course, it wouldn't be TMS if their controls wouldn't be able to handle their other new developments. You can easily use the T-Advanced tooltip controls with vector graphics and their new T-Advanced SVG image collection. That means you can build modern user interfaces based on vector graphics, and the tiny little icons inside of your tooltips are always going to be crystal sharp. In this example, I defined 3 vector graphics. For example, this one for the warning, I can show it right here. This is a vector for the warning icon, or for the error box, another vector. And these vectors are all kept inside of a T-Advanced SVG image collection. And the image collection is tied to the new image list control provided by Embarcadero, the latest Delphi versions. And this image list provides the images added to it in all the different sizes that might be needed. You don't know which size you need. You specify the size of these images as 24 pixels by 24 pixels for the standard display resolution. And that means if you run this application on a non-high DPI display, meaning that you have in Windows a zoom of 100%, these images are always going to be 24 pixels wide and high. But as soon, for example, if one of your customers has a Surface tablet or an Apple tablet, for example, other image sizes might be needed. On a standard display, 24 times 24 pixels might be fine. But if one of your customers has a display which uses 200% zoom on Windows, for example, you will need to provide an image that is twice as big. And that is done automatically using this technique. Any vector image can be scaled to any size that is needed. And with the virtual image list, which is part of Delphi, this is done automatically. So this image list will request an image in the size it needs, and this guarantees that your user interface will always look sharp and the images will never get pixelated. Running this application, you see that I have a vector image right here. And also all the icons here have been replaced with vector images. I also replaced the fonts, made them a little bit bigger, and I also increased the size of the icons. This shows you how flexible and great the variety is that you can create for your forms with the new version of the VCL UI Pack. VCL UI Pack makes sure that you have the best VCL controls from TMS Forward Studio to build modern user interfaces for Windows, so you stay ahead of the competition. For more information on all the VCL controls from TMS software, go to vcl.tmssoftware.com.